In this podcast episode, clinical social worker Patrick Teahan explores the profound and lasting impacts of childhood trauma on individuals' emotional, psychological, and social well-being. He delves into how trauma shapes identity, relationship patterns, nervous system functioning, and the inner voice one carries throughout life. Patrick shares insights on reconnecting with the neglected inner child, navigating difficult family dynamics, and cultivating authenticity and intimacy. The conversation also touches on the challenges trauma survivors face in recognizing triggers, healing identity wounds, and breaking cycles of unhealthy relationships. Patrick explains that childhood trauma primarily causes disconnection from the world and oneself. This disconnection is often rooted in deep-seated shame that colors all emotions, making it difficult for survivors to identify or trust their feelings. Trauma survivors may mask their authentic selves, relying on skills or performances as a substitute for true identity, such as excelling at a hobby or talent. While these strategies can provide temporary relief or visibility, they ultimately limit one's sense of belonging and authenticity, causing feelings of bitterness and isolation when the strategies no longer serve. Trauma survivors often struggle with a fragmented or superficial sense of self because their worth was dismissed or invalidated as children. Patrick highlights how identity tied to achievements or skills is fragile. When those are lost, the person can experience profound destabilization. The damaged inner narrative frequently includes self-blame or feelings of being bad or unworthy, either imposed by caregivers or internally generated from neglect. This internalized negative perception distorts how survivors experience relationships, intimacy, and their place in the world. Many adults with childhood trauma respond to their wounds by engaging superficially with others, fearing vulnerability and emotional depth. This often stems from a childhood that lacked emotional modeling, where parents might have been dismissive, inconsistent, or abusive in their expression of feelings. Patrick discusses that this surface-level engagement is a protective strategy to contain shame and avoid painful emotions, but simultaneously hinders genuine intimacy and healing. One of the central healing modalities Patrick advocates is cultivating a relationship with the younger self, or inner child, who endured neglect, abuse, or abandonment. Techniques such as dialoguing with one's inner child, using both dominant and non-dominant hands to express a conversation between adult and child parts, can help bridge disconnection. This process often involves using tactile cues, childhood pictures, or nostalgic objects to access emotions safely. He cautions that sometimes the inner child resists connection out of anger or mistrust, and it can be a slow, nuanced journey to build safety and compassion in this relationship. Failure to do this inner work can leave survivors stuck in bitterness and an inability to experience tenderness and compassion. Discussion extends to parallels between trauma survivors and the neurodivergent community, particularly regarding masking, adapting behaviors to fit normative expectations at the cost of authenticity. While neurodivergence is innate, childhood trauma survivors similarly learn to mask to survive abusive or neglectful environments. Both experiences involve a kind of identity suppression that can be traumatic and isolating. Patrick notes that growing up neurodivergent in unsupportive settings can add layers of trauma, often described as double whammy trauma. Patrick shares his personal experiences of reconciling with and setting boundaries around his parents. He advocates for finishing business with family of origin, which often happens through therapy or structured group work rather than direct confrontation. No-contact decisions typically arise when ongoing interactions continue to trigger trauma and hinder healing. Such separation is framed as a boundary to protect one's progress rather than punitive rejection. Changes in parental behavior, such as honesty and accountability, can create opportunities for reconnection, but these shifts are usually slow and uncertain. Childhood trauma unconsciously shapes whom survivors are drawn to romantically and socially. Patrick explains that many repeat dysfunctional relational patterns, not by conscious choice, but out of familiarity and unhealed needs, such as attempting to rescue or gain approval from difficult partners. This pattern is sustained by an inner child seeking the nurturing or protection missed in childhood. Healthy relationships can feel unfamiliar or intimidating because they lack the drama or chaos that trauma survivors unconsciously expect, and paradoxically, find stimulating. Learning to seek and tolerate calm, stability, and genuine intimacy is a key growth area. Frequent emotional triggering is a hallmark of unhealed childhood trauma. Patrick likens heightened reactivity to having one's nervous system on high alert, where perceived slights or minor stressors elicit disproportionate responses that can last days. He emphasizes the importance of recognizing triggers as echoes of childhood pain rather than solely current realities. Healing inner child work can shorten this dysregulated response from days to minutes by contextualizing the emotional charge and reminding the adult self that the present threat is not the same as past trauma. The ongoing internal narrative for many trauma survivors is one of unworthiness, blame, and shame, which colors how they interpret present experiences. Patrick emphasizes that survivors view the world through the lens of their childhood, often negatively attributing interpersonal dynamics to personal failure or defectiveness. Healing reframes this inner voice, encouraging a compassionate and empowered sense of self that recognizes past wounds while affirming inherent value and belonging. Addressing childhood trauma and reconnecting with one's inner child has direct effects on the nervous system, facilitating greater regulation, presence, and emotional resilience. Patrick discusses how awareness and processing reduce prolonged states of hypervigilance and distress, leading to better physical health outcomes and improved quality of life. This work allows survivors to wait out triggers more quickly and return to a grounded state instead of lingering in dysregulation. The shame and disconnection from trauma seed feelings of inadequacy and imposter syndrome, where survivors doubt their abilities or right to succeed. Patrick connects this to the internalized belief of not belonging that pervades trauma survivors' self-perception. Healing fosters a shift to recognizing one's deservingness of opportunities and accomplishments, empowering survivors to claim their place and manifest healthier, more fulfilling lives. Patrick underscores the power of group therapy models like his relationship recovery process, RRP, which combine education on trauma, family genograms, reparenting, and intimacy work. These groups offer a shared space for truth-telling, feedback, and dismantling defenses, gradually allowing participants to embrace authenticity and develop new relational patterns. The multi-year commitment reflects the deep, complex nature of trauma healing and the importance of sustained support. Patrick concludes with 3 core truths he would leave behind. First, that every person is a beautiful spark, a good and worthy child regardless of past wounds. Second, the importance of embracing an attitude of trying, taking risks, and being willing to engage with life despite the fear of failure. Third, a call to seek the goodness in humanity and connection, even when past experiences have been deeply damaging. These truths reflect his hopeful, compassionate approach to trauma recovery.